We're here in Jaisalmer, India to test ride the new Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650. This bike has received a lot of buzz online, but can you believe the hype? And will this be the new king of the beginner cruiser category in America? Well, only one way to find out. Let's go take it for a ride. All right, folks, swinging a leg over the Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650. The bike I've got today is the Touring Edition one, so it's got the tall windscreen, the comfort seat, and the little backrest as well. 29-inch seat height, so it sits really nice and low. I'm about 5'11". I got a very pronounced bend in my legs when I'm on this thing. And I gotta say, it's very narrow through the midsection right here, but the gas tank extends out a lot, and the handlebars are nice and wide, and you've got this feet-forward controls here. And so this motorcycle ends up feeling very substantial. Despite it being a 650, this feels like a very full-sized motorcycle, which is not something you can really say in the beginner cruiser category. Think about stuff like the Rebel 300, 500s. They always feel a little diminutive, and this bike feels full-sized. Liking the control so far, like the ergonomics. Obviously this bike is sharing parts with the Interceptor 650, but features a brand new frame. But the most important thing we want to find out is, can this motorcycle cruise? Well, let's go see. And I would say so, man. I think the only thing that I'm noticing in terms of a cruiser machine is the ergonomics are not exactly what I would want. So I'm about 5'11", pretty average sized human male, and I would like the bars to be a little bit further back and just a little bit more relaxed. I'm in a bit of a clamshell position, but it kind of splits the difference between kind of a standard bike and a cruiser in that way. First thing I notice on motorcycles too is the throttle, and this bike has a great throttle. Really crisp on-off throttle, roll into it nice and easy, really nice. And the other thing about it too is this motorcycle's got this understressed engine, this 648cc P-twin, and it just feels like it can just churn mile after mile. And with a nearly 200-mile range on this tank, this is a pretty good, honest cruising machine. I think that the ergonomics are a little bit compromised, but other than that, it works really well. But let's learn more about the detailed specs on this machine, and then we'll keep getting into this video.
The brief for the Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650 was simple: make a proper cruiser. What do they mean by proper? Well, they're going for a comfortable, good range, cruiser geometry and ergonomics to match. Cruisers evoke feelings of freedom, the open road, easy rider from the 60s, and of course, daddy issues. Nothing says I had an emotionally neglectful father better than riding by yourself for 3 days on a cruiser motorcycle. All jokes aside, the Enfield has the specs to back up the cruiser ethos. The engine comes from the INT 650 and produces the same 47 horsepower and 38 foot-pounds of torque. The cases look slightly different too, and that's pretty cool. The next spec that's most important for beginner riders, since I know this bike will be super popular for the entry-level category in America, is a 29-inch seat height. That is very approachable, and best of all, the bike is super narrow in the middle, meaning it's easy to maneuver. The chassis is all new and the engine is now a stressed member of the frame. No old school cradle frame here. It's been designed specifically for the Super Meteor, and the swing arm is different too. Suspension is provided by an inverted unit from Showa, trick stuff for a Royal Enfield, and the rear is a nondescript 5-stage preload adjustable unit. One of the most unique features I can spot on this bike is the 19-inch front wheel paired with a 16-inch rear wheel, giving it that big front wheel quality that cruiser boys love. In terms of range, the Enfield has a 4.1 gallon tank. Using the INT 650's MPG figures, we estimate that you can get a little under 200 miles on one tank for this bike. Plenty of range to cruise, and forget about how your wife's boyfriend didn't buy you that limited edition Nintendo Switch that you wanted. The bike comes in a standard trim and a touring trim. The touring trim features the larger touring windshield, backrest, and grab handles, while the standard trim is more of a stripped back urban cruiser style motorcycle. But here's the thing that everyone wants to know is the price, and I wanted to know the price too, but unfortunately Royal Enfield North America has not confirmed pricing for us just yet. But I'm going to estimate it's going to cost between $7,400 and $7,700 when it's available in summer of 2023. We think that's good value for money, but can the Enfield sell well to the American market?
Now, when we're talking about the Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650 in the American market, there's a couple things you need to think about. Number one, they're making this bike in two different trims. So it's going to come in the touring trim with the windshield and the comfort seat and the backrest, or in the kind of standard trim that looks like a bop-around cruiser bike that you would find in a lot of American suburbs. The other thing I want to talk about is the fact that the Sportster has been discontinued. This is a huge thing for Royal Enfield Super Meteor because it kind of means that there's a vacuum for this entry-level, air-cooled, easy-going motorcycle. All the other competitors are liquid-cooled and Japanese. We think about the Rebel 300 and the 500. Those are much lighter weight, much simpler, much easier going, and lower seat height motorcycles than the full-sized Super Meteor 650. If you sit on a Rebel and then you sit on a Super Meteor, they feel very different because the Super Meteor feels a lot more dense and heavy because it is. Other bikes like the Kawasaki Vulcan 650 just end up feeling a little bit too sporty in my opinion and don't really know what they want to be. Also, the styling really isn't to everyone's taste and isn't as classic and retro as the Royal Enfield as well. The Yamaha Bolt is a bit of a dinosaur, so it's kind of tough to say too if that bike's really a competitor. So to be honest, this Super Meteor 650 is really carving itself a nice little niche, but let's ride the bike a little bit more and understand the Super Meteor 650.
Alright, we're going to test the Royal Enfield's acceleration a little bit. Okay, so we're going to drop it down to, let's do 60 kph to 120 kph. How about that? Second gear, 60. It's not going to set your hair on fire, but I think that's pretty decent for a beginner bike. In America anyways, guys. Don't get mad at me for calling it a beginner bike. My group up there is maxing it out, so let's go, baby. Top speed on the Super Meteor. 5th gear, tapped. Maybe 6th. What do we got? 150. I think I hit 160. Coming up on him, I had to shut it down. Oh, bumpy roads though to hit 160 kph, which I think that's like 110 miles an hour or something like that, which makes sense for this bike. That seems to be its top speeds. I will say, as a side note, if there's one thing I could change about this bike, it'd be to remove this stupid heel shifter. I hear that in the Indian markets people prefer that, but I gotta say, when I'm on the balls of my feet and I'm kind of trying to lob over a speed bump, this thing catches false neutrals all day because my heel ends up hitting the bottom of this other shifter. Just give me a regular shifter. Don't need a heel shifter at all. More observations on the bike. I do wish it had a tachometer. I do think it's cool that this bike has the navigation feature over here and a gear indicator. That's cool. You don't see that in the Interceptor 650, and a gas gauge too, which is always nice. But I wish that there was maybe an internal ring, maybe a light-up ring that showed RPMs, just because the motor's a little quiet from the factory and it's hard to hear when you're actually getting up close to those high RPMs. Side note, I've been on these cobblestones for a good 5 minutes now, and I can say that the Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650 suspension can definitely handle your bumps and divots in the road for your everyday commute. I mean, some BMW GS owners wouldn't even attempt this. I'm not even gonna lie. Now, once I heard that the Super Meteor 650 had an all-new chassis, I was really excited to ride it. That's a really big piece of news for any motorcycle company to release a model with an all-new frame. And I gotta say, this bike doesn't disappoint. Although you guys have seen me riding mostly in a straight line here, when you get the bike over from side to side a little bit, as we did yesterday, the handling is very confidence-inspiring. To be honest, it feels a lot like a Vulcan 650, which you might say, but Yam, you hate the Vulcan 650. But, that's a very big but, this motorcycle executes so much better on the authentic cruiser thing. First of all, it looks really cool. The Vulcan looks a little like, you know, kind of like a Z650 turned into a cruiser. It's fine, but this is the authentic real deal. Second of all, this has the rumbly grumbly air-cooled parallel twin. That gives it so much more character and pizzazz than the traditional 180-degree crank found in the Vulcan 650. And I gotta say, the overall execution on this platform really translates. It works really well. You have nice perch on the gas tank here, so that even if you want to just cruise and lay back, you can. But if you want to actually carve some corners with this thing, you have a perch to put your knee into it as well. You can kind of get after it a little bit and enjoy. Throttle response is super crisp on this bad boy, so on-off throttle, tip it into corners, trailing it in a little bit, all that stuff translates really, really well. And I'm happy to report that the handling is very good on the Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650. I'm really enjoying this bike. But with all that being said, let's wrap up our thoughts on this machine.
All right, guys, made it back here to my room in Kinsar near the dunes. We did about 200 miles on the Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650, so I feel like I've got a pretty good idea of what this motorcycle is all about. And here's what I can tell you. It's a really honest motorcycle, right? It's simple, it's bare bones, it's a no muss, no fuss sort of thing. And in today's world, that's kind of a good thing. You think about all the bikes with their TFT displays and the computers and the traction control and all the crazy whiz-bangery. It's nice to ride something simple and just honest and good. It doesn't mean it's a perfect motorcycle. There's quite a few small things I would tweak on it. I think the lack of cruise control is a big oversight. Totally understand they didn't want to do a ride-by-wire system and really get the bike all dialed in, and would have added a ton to the research and development, but I feel like if they were already working on the bike for over 2 years, it would have made sense to just get the computers all sorted on that motorcycle and get a ride-by-wire system and get cruise control as well. I feel like the heel shifter situation is a huge miss. I know that in the Indian market, they apparently really want that, but I just feel like it really compromised the motorcycle, especially when you got on the balls of your feet and tried to stand up on it to clear any speed bumps. You would inevitably hit that heel shifter and accidentally shift up a gear and hit neutral and all kinds of weird stuff. So I really didn't like the heel shifter at all. But the motorcycle runs super smooth and easy. It's not a vibrational engine whatsoever. The parallel twin is very balanced, and so you don't have a motorcycle that is like a Harley-Davidson Sportster. It's just like lugging away, and you literally see the front wheel just shaking at a stoplight. Speaking of the Harley-Davidson Sportster, this bike really kind of is in between a Vulcan 650 and a Harley-Davidson Sportster 883. And I actually talked to one of the design heads at Royal Enfield, and I said this bike is in the middle of those two motorcycles, and he said that's exactly what we were going for. So if you can imagine a mashup between a Vulcan 650 and a Sportster 883, that's pretty much what a Super Meteor 650 is, and all for that price too. That's pretty impressive. So I think Royal Enfield's got a real winner on their hands. It's a sharp looking motorcycle, and I think this might be the new customizing king when it comes to the beginner cruiser category. But let me know what you guys think about this bike down below. I hope you've enjoyed coming along this ride with me. Big thanks to Royal Enfield for inviting me out here to India. That is a massive, crazy global press launch that they've done here. And it's been super cool getting the chance to come out here and check out India and ride. Tomorrow, you guys are going to see some of my impressions of riding on these Indian roads on the Super Meteor 650. Be sure to tune in for that vlog. But yeah, I would rate the Super Meteor 650 a solid 8.5 to 8.75 out of 10 for its category and its style of motorcycle. I think that you could do a whole lot worse, and Royal Enfield just keeps crushing it, man. This is a good, honest motorcycle that a lot of people are going to enjoy. And I think in America, if you're a bit of a bigger rider and you want to get yourself a proper sized cruiser, the Super Meteor 650 is a great option. Feels substantial, feels well made, but not exactly perfect, but still pretty good. I would recommend getting it in the touring trim. I really enjoyed it with the bubble windshield and the comfort seat. I think that matches the vibe of the motorcycle. And then if it were me as well, I would put a nice exhaust on it, get that sound a little bit more sorted, and get rid of that heel shifter immediately. And maybe get a throttle lock too if I'm going to be crushing big miles. Thanks again for watching the video, guys. I really appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next one.
Oh man. I gotta win this race. I better keep watching. Yeah, me too. Oh man. Oh no. I can't see.